Hello there. Before we get started this week, I want to give a shout out to all of these people. These names are people that have recently joined our membership area called Experience Shakespeare. The membership area of our show gives them access to history activity kits, bonus content, and an entire resource library all about William Shakespeare's history. Thank you guys for being here. If you'd like to join Experience Shakespeare, be sure to check out the link below this video. I'm Cassidy Cash, and welcome to Did Shakespeare. This is the show where we explore ordinary life facts about one of my favorite people, William Shakespeare, and examine what those things would have been like during the 16th and 17th century. We start by asking a good question, and then we explore what we're able to find out to answer them. This week, we're looking at the ordinary idea that any human being has to go to the bathroom. A brief look at Tudor history will show you regular bathroom items included chamber pots, bathtubs, and sometimes even boilers for heating up water for hot baths. But what about toilets? To find out exactly what was inside the Bard's restroom, we're asking, did Shakespeare have a toilet? Now, I know you've got lots of potty humor on the mind, especially from someone like William Shakespeare, but that's not what I'm talking about. What we're talking about is the history of the actual toilet. Where did it come from? And it turns out there's a huge piece of Shakespeare's history about this little item. The Romans thought of bathroom going as a public affair, and they built these long benches with holes in it where patrons would use the bathroom right next to their buddies and then go out about the rest of their day. By the Middle Ages in England, they had upgraded this somewhat to what's called garderobes. They were jutting out little sections of the castle where you would go to the bathroom and everything would just fall out and fall into the moat around the castle. As you can imagine, by the time summertime rolled around, this smelled quite horrible. The smell actually turned out to be useful, though, because it deterred moths, which would otherwise eat the clothing. So a lot of times people would actually hang their clothes in this area of the castle in order to protect the clothes from the moths. This is actually where we get the word wardrobe today. During the life of William Shakespeare, however, not everyone had a castle and they didn't necessarily have a garderobe. So for the less rich and famous, the average person during William Shakespeare's life would have just had a hole in the ground with a plank stretched across the top. The York Archaeological Society has an example of one of these. It was recently uncovered, and it's literally just a hole with a plank over it, and the plank has a hole in it where you would obviously sit down. Fancy stuff. In the 16th century, having a special room in your home for bathing was extremely rare. People didn't do this. When you built your home, you weren't calculating 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. You didn't do that. There was no bathroom in the home. Now, this is an exception to the fact that Henry VIII, during this general time period of Tudor history here, he did actually build one for his castle, but he was the exception, not the rule. Most people, not even royalty, didn't have an actual room to bathe in. The bucket with a hole in the top approach to using the restroom persisted throughout William Shakespeare's lifetime as the primary way for nobles and poor people alike to use the necessaries. However, not all of civilized society in England was content with this version of the facilities, however. So in 1596, Sir John Harington invented a new way when he created what he called the Ajax. Up until now, the hole in the ground with a board on top was called a jakes. And so when Sir John Harington invented the first ever in the entire world flush toilet, he did so by calling it the Ajax. As it happens, our modern use of the word John is actually a nod to Sir John Harington, by the way. And yes, if you are a fan of Game of Thrones, Kit Harington is supposedly related to him. You can go figure that one out for yourself. While it wouldn't be until the 19th century that this really took off and became something that most people did, it did exist during William Shakespeare's lifetime. As a small tangentially related history trivia fact here, the man who did make it famous in England during the 19th century was also an Englishman named Thomas Crapper, and I'm not making that up. This is not a joke. It's his actual unfortunate name. By about the 1960s, it fell into disuse, and it was a historian who bought the company named Simon Kirby, and Simon Kirby actually moved the company as a kind of museum to Stratford-upon-Avon, England. Perhaps Kirby was impressed with Shakespeare's potty jokes because the Bard includes an entire running joke on toilets throughout his play Troilus and Cressida. There is one other textual reference to toilets that shows up in Shakespeare's plays, and here's where you can find it. The one single textual reference I was able to find to the actual word jakes in Shakespeare's play, where he's applying it to talk about a toilet, appears when the Earl of Kent hurls this particular insult from King Lear. He says, "My lord, if you'll give me leave, I will tread this unbolted villain into mortar and daub the walls of a jakes with him." See, the walls of a jakes is a wall of a room with a hole in it for the purpose of going to the bathroom. The best joke on toilets from Shakespeare comes from Troilus and Cressida, though, and there's a character in the play named Ajax. It makes sense that Ajax would appear in Troilus and Cressida, given that Ajax the Great was a Greek mythological hero. But what's hilarious in connection with toilets, though, is that the character of Ajax throughout the entire play is what you might call full of crap. See, Thomas Crapper gives us that phrase. It's not the most honorable way to be remembered, but it definitely suggests that William Shakespeare knew about Sir John Harington's invention from 1596, and that the jakes was making quite a splash among English society. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. If you like the history you're learning about on these episodes, please be sure and hit like and subscribe. You'll have to hit the little notification bell for YouTube to tell you about the latest episodes, but that's the best way to make sure that you don't miss a single one. Until next time, I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.